watching some of the information about the future king of England. And what Ron didn't tell you that actually he's king and I'm second. So I'll be king after Ron. Ron, thank you. I do have a PowerPoint presentation. Natalie English, when she asked me to do this, she told me that you all were interested in information about Rural Mayor Bearden Park. But she told me, she said, but Bobbie, in your new role as interim county manager, you can talk about wherever you want to talk about. So I went through the list. I said, well, I can talk a little bit about neck length, changes to DSS, the transition from the health department. I could talk a little bit about building code standards, or I could talk about the 2011 revaluation. And I chose not to talk about any of those. However, I might touch slightly on one or two of them. What I did choose to do is to stick with what Natalie suggested and to talk about urban parks, especially with a leaning towards economic development in general. And if I can get this PowerPoint working right. Okay. I came to Charlotte in 1975, and I was fortunate enough to find a picture of Charlotte, Center City, in 1975. And what I have highlighted to you are probably some well-known buildings, or maybe not so well-known for some of the newcomers. On the left is the Wachovia building. In the center is the First Union building. And to the right with the arrow is the NCND building. That's what we used to call them a long time ago. And in the foreground, you can see Abbott's Mart and also the Cameron Brown building. You also notice near the third arrow, the triangles, the old convention center, as some of you might recall. I do remember coming to Charlotte in April 1975. It was on a rainy day. It was overcast, it was gloomy, and I'm a country fellow. And I saw all of these mid-rise low buildings, and Charlotte during that time, as some of you probably know, had a reputation about having a high crime rate as well. So I was kind of terrified at the big city of Charlotte, but I stayed anyway. Now, this is Charlotte probably 2 years ago. A couple of things that we built recently is not showing up. You see in the foreground, the government center complex, and I'll put those same arrows back up there. You see in the far left, the Wachovia building, which now is the Wells Fargo building. The building in the center used to be First Union. I guess it's a Wells Fargo building as well. And the one on the far right, I'm not sure what we call that these days. Maybe it's Bank of America still, I don't know. Now, Mecklenburg County purchased some land, sort of. We haven't paid for it yet. We acquired some land from both the Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system and from the city of Charlotte. And we actually owe both of them. This was going to be part of the land swap that I'm sure you all heard a lot about. The plan at the time was to carve out a portion of that land for a park in Second Ward. And the rest of it would be sold off to developers to be developed. It was a grand scheme, but as you know, with most grand schemes, sometimes they don't work out exactly what you have planned. There would not have been any money exchange, and there still hasn't been any with regards to this piece of land. But the county, through the land swap process, did make several investments in future parks. We were excited about the opportunity because, as you know, Mecklenburg County is in the park and recreation business. And the idea was to have an urban park in each of the 4 wards in Center City. And right now we have a plan for 3 of those. One is under development and one is already in existence. So I'll talk a little bit about each of those. This is the future vision of what we call the park in Brooklyn Village. We still intend for this to happen. It might take a little longer for it to occur. This picture that you're looking at is standing on Martin Luther King Boulevard looking back towards the Civil Courts building. You can see it, the low building right there in the center. It's a very exciting park concept. It's more of a plaza that will be surrounded by apartments and office buildings. We still intend to do this in conjunction with the City of Charlotte and Charlotte Mecklenburg School in a housing partnership. In fact, our City Council just last night approved an extension of the amount of time that we, being the city and county, will actually have to make this happen. And we are still looking for developers to help us make this happen in a public-private partnership. Now, moving over to Third Ward, this is the site, the notorious site, where now a Charlotte Knights or the BB&T ballpark is under construction. As you can tell, this is an old picture. But down at the very bottom is the baseball stadium site. Up near the top is the Romare Bearden Park site. That's the park that's currently under construction. And right now we plan to have the grand opening on Labor Day. The grand opening was planned for Memorial Day, but we had a lot of rain, so we had to postpone it until Labor Day. It will be a very exciting time. If you're not planning to attend, I would encourage you to put it on your calendar for Labor Day, and we will make it happen on Labor Day. That's about 2 months ago, that's the way it was looking. And that's a future vision of what Romare Bearden Park will look like. It will be very exciting space, a lot of activity, and we expect that it will continue to encourage economic development as well. Now I want to move over to First Ward. It's kind of ironic that this is a project that we started working with probably 15 to 20 years ago. And the thought was that this would be the first new park out of the ground. But it did not happen. Over on the right, you can see an excavation site. That's the location of the now existing UNC Charlotte building. And the plan was to indeed have an urban park, and we're still working on it. We're still being told that it will happen. We had to arrange a somewhat unique public-private partnership to make this happen. For now, the developer has the option to build this park and will be reimbursed by Mecklenburg County. The City of Charlotte has also agreed to do some road work infrastructure improvement associated with this as well. We are ready. We're waiting for the economy and the developer to move ahead with the park in First Ward. And that's the future vision of the First Ward Park. You can see a rendering of the UNC Charlotte building still there on the right. And it will be a very exciting space. At the very top of the park site is the light rail. So again, a lot of development opportunity, and we believe that these parks that I'm sharing with you will be one of the mechanisms to encourage future economic development within the City of Charlotte. Now, I had to show a jewel within Center City, and that's Fourth Ward. Some of you might actually live there, but it really is a hidden treasure. And Mecklenburg County owns land in that location. And that's a picture of Fourth Ward Park. Very tranquil, very quiet space, good space to visit. I was walking through one time and there were people from the DC area walking through, and they were commenting on what a jewel we have right here within the Center City of Charlotte. And our plan, again, is to have a park in each of the 4 wards as exciting as what we have in Fourth Ward. Now, this is an overview, again, with the plan. Those little blue dots, they're not very large, but they will be significant open spaces. They will be significant drivers of economic development, and we're looking forward to continuing to do that. Now, that's not the end of the story, though, because there's also a plan to not only connect those parks with green streets, but also the red line there. I tried to use greenway to show up really well. That's the greenway, which is already completed, and hopefully some of you have walked and visited the Greenway Trail as well. The plan is one day for Little Sugar Creek Greenway to go all the way down into South Carolina and to connect to the regional trail system as well. Again, Mecklenburg County is very committed to doing this. We made quite an investment in urban parks in Mecklenburg County, but maybe not quite as much as we hoped to. That's a view of the Greenway at Metropolitan. As Ron mentioned, the city and county participated in getting the Metropolitan project to be built at that location in a public-private partnership, and we're excited about the outcome of the Little Sugar Creek Greenway. That's one view. Another beautiful view is right there across from Central Piedmont, the college campus as well. Finally, I'll be remiss without talking some about financial implications. Going back to 1970, since 1970, Mecklenburg County has actually, the voters have actually approved $479 million of park and recreation bonds. That excludes probably $150 billion in land bonds that the county approved as well. Now, you see on that chart two red lines. Those are the years when the bond referendum for park and recreation actually failed. It failed in 1970, a $1 million bond referendum, and in 1993, a $30 billion bond referendum. So since 1970, Mecklenburg County, or the voters in Mecklenburg County, have actually approved around $500 million of bonds for parks and recreation. I want to put that in perspective. The plan is to have on the ballot in November a $500 million bond referendum in 1 year for education at Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools and Central Piedmont Community College. If you look where it says 2008 to $250 million, we have actually issued 10 million of the 250 million of the 2008 bonds. And some of you in this room are probably very much aware that bonds actually have a life. They actually expire. Typically, it's after 7 years, but there's a provision to get a 3-year extension. So at some point in the near future, the 250 million bond authorization will expire, and we expect that it will expire. Because some of you probably recall what happened. On the way to doing greater things with park and recreation, the economy happened about that time. And Mecklenburg County realized that we were spending, selling more bonds than we could actually afford. So we went on a debt diet, and as a result, we have not issued really any of the $250 million. And with the education bonds, what you will find that the opportunity to bring another ballot to park and recreation and to sell additional bonds or to sell additional bonds will not occur probably for the next 4 or 5 years. So what are we doing to make sure that we are continuing making progress? We're using what we call pay-as-you-go, and there's it's not a substantial amount, but it's enough to keep economic development and park projects moving for the near future. There is a risk, and this is where I will diverge just a little bit and mention the 2011 revaluation. As some of you probably know, this afternoon the governor will sign Senate Bill 159 that would mandate a certain amount of refunds to taxpayers within Mecklenburg County whose property value was overvalued during the 2011 revaluation. The plan is to tap that same funding source, which would basically be pay-as-you-go or reserve funds, to issue those refunds. And we do not know how much that would be, but that has the potential of also impacting future availability of funds for park recreation and for other purposes. So, that's my presentation. I don't know how long it took, and I stayed away from everything but 2011 revaluation as I promised, but I'm certainly open to questions about any of those topics, and I'm very confident in saying that because I will acknowledge two of my bosses sitting up here with me, two commissioners, and if you have a very, very, very hard question that I can't answer, I'm sure they will be able to step in. So with that, I'm open